All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here in just a second. And for those of you who are, most of you are already familiar with PTC user and the tech committees, but I'll probably run through all the slides anyways. So those who watch the recording and aren't familiar will actually have it available when they watch the recording. So you'll just have to bear with me. We'll get through all the pain of the formalities. And welcome, Ben. You look like a new one. I don't recognize your name, but welcome to the meeting, and hopefully you get something out of our presentation today on the PC user tech committees, and specifically smart manufacturing and traditional manufacturing that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Eric Horn. I am the TC Chair for Smart Manufacturing and Industry 4.0, and I'm joined by Scott Miller, who's the TC Chair for Manufacturing for the Creo Parametric Suite of manufacturing tools. And so we're just going to walk you through today just a little bit about PTC User and our tech committees and what our two technical committees are all about and how you can help. So first off, who is PTC User? So this is an independent organization. It has PTC at the beginning, but it is a completely voluntary organization that is not part of PTC, but is an independent voice of the customers about the representation of how we use it and trying to give insights and just generating a community behind it. Our mission is to advocate on the behalf of customers, and that's all through events, annual meetings, tech committees, working groups, and the mission is to educate, advocate, and support for the whole community. How do we do that? So, the board likes to do meetings with the PTC executives. I've never been in one of those meetings, but I would definitely be very interesting to be a fly on the wall, that's for sure. Working groups, which is something that has been new in the last couple of years and has been gaining a lot of momentum. And a working group is a very specific topic-based kind of a small group, I would say, where you get together, try to come up with some sort of roadmap for a specific narrow mindset of a functionality that's being improved upon or worked on. And then of course through events, so there's face-to-face events, there's virtual events, there's all kinds of events, and of course with these COVID times, virtual events are becoming the norm. So anytime you see events coming up, webcasts, those are great times to get involved. And of course through the technical committees. So the technical committees, there's many of them, they meet regularly. Those are probably the most frequent way to get involved with and to meet on a regular basis if this is something that you really steer towards. And then of course there's a winter event coming in San Diego in January. Of course, we have no idea what the impact of our current situation is going to be on that event. It is going to be next year in January, so that's probably still up in the air, but we do meet typically every January as we call that a winter event. We try to do that face to face. That's usually a great time if you can get together. It's definitely separate than LiveWorks. It's a much smaller, more focused event, and we tend to get across a lot of networking and technical content that you typically don't get at the big event. So I strongly encourage you to look towards that. So today we're talking about the tech committees, and so this is really where we get to start talking about the voice of the customer. This is where all the PTC product managers are usually involved with. So every tech committee typically has at least one or more PTC product managers that support that technical committee, and they will usually either drive working groups and participate in the open meetings. So it's good if you don't actually know the product managers. This is a good way to get involved with and build a network with them, because that's essentially a really good way of increasing your communication with PTC. And it's much better avenue than just having their support hotline available, because sometimes there's stuff that your support may not be able to handle, and the product manager maybe you've got a good connection with them, can also be a good method of saying, hey, I'm having this issue, and then they'll point you in the right direction. So yeah, and then the other aspects of it is webinars. So you know, you can either be asked to present a webinar or just attend a webinar. So tech committees do participate in those. They are a good voice of, you know, hey, do you have a good webinar? Let's create one. You can get together, answer each other's questions. And of course, tech committees also own and manage the agenda for in-person events. So I always ask, you know, try to get everybody's opinion as far as what we can help drive for agendas. And, you know, I'd like it to be more than just the tech committee chair people that put that together. It should be a, you know, kind of a combined effort, but I tend to do quite a bit of both. I don't know what Scott's new to the chairperson role, so I don't know what his influence is on that, but usually most of us that are leading tech committees tend to drive a lot of the agenda. Then of course, LiveWorks agendas. So tech committees do get involved with reviewing content. So if you think that PTC just comes up with their agendas for what presentations make the conference, that's not necessarily true. We do get together with the LiveWorks team, and we'll review a lot, if not most of the submissions, and we'll help rate them and tell them what we think is appropriate and what we think is not appropriate. So, and that's just, you know, kind of touching the iceberg as far as what tech committees actually do. But it is a good thing to plug into and to help you get involved. TC is led by a TC chair. You know, it's kind of like it's the one person that just kind of helps drive, making sure that everything stays on track, you know, meetings are regularly happening, communication is happening with PTC, and it's also we're essentially the TC chair is also the voice to the PTC user board as far as how things are going. Is there ways that we can improve? Because the board can only cover so much, the community is big and very diverse, and it helps to have the TC chairs to kind of help facilitate that. And of course, the TC chair also helps build the agenda. So typically TC chairs are picked because that, you know, we have usually a big history with working with the community already. We typically understand from a big picture where that community is going, and then we can help drive that. And of course, it is all voluntary. We do this as part of, on top of a regular work as well. So sometimes, you know, it can be hard to facilitate everything, but we do our best to fill in and you know, take over that kind of work. So yeah, we facilitate conversations, and of course involving other committees as appropriate. And we're talking about some of the other committees just as far as which, you know, there's always, you know, there's so many different committees. You're like, which ones do I belong to? Well, some of them are complementary to other tech committees, and some of them do cross over. So we do some cross communication and talking, especially when a piece of PTC functionality crosses multiple functional areas. And of course, we identify areas where working groups make sense and make sure that working groups are identified and worked on appropriately. And the TC chair also just helps communicate with all the TCs in general. And so what tools do we use? So we have two major tools that we currently use. The ptcuser.org portal is one of the big ones. That's where you actually will log into and actually request to join a TC, and then we will approve that. And then that's where all essentially the email communication comes in. So that's like for my TC for smart manufacturing, that's where I send out all of the notifications. That's where all the meetings are organized. Some files can be shared. So that's your main portal to go to. Then there's a PTC community, and PTC.com, if you have an active support agreement with PTC, you can join the community.ptc.com. And in there, that's also where all the working groups will be created. And that's the portal that we use for communicating with working groups and also to communicate with, the rest of the PTC community members who decide to join there. But I would say as far as the PTC user organization goes, that's not like our focus, but that's where most of our main focus is. That's where the working group activity resides and we communicate with. And that's also where product managers tend to go for additional information. So sometimes the product managers may be working in the PTC community as a whole. And so if you're not used to using that, that's a good source to go to for both PTC user and just working with PTC in general. There's a big list of all of the TCs. And so in bold, I kind of highlighted some that are complementary to the areas that Scott and I will be talking about today. So like augmented and virtual reality is definitely key for smart manufacturing, as that's kind of the future that we're going towards. And so if you are involved with that, sometimes you may want to join that TC as well, because that's the all AR and VR experience for PTC. Generally, we'll just bring in the manufacturing related discussions about that. Creo CAD is also very important, because without Creo CAD, many of the visualizations that we'll be talking about later on, that's where it's all authored from. So we tend to talk a lot about Creo CAD. And also the other one I'm going to talk about is model-based enterprise and model-based definition. So without that model-based definition, of course, that's where we want to get all of our data from, and we want to have that flow downstream. And of course, that then also feeds into visualization and Windchill, because both of those are key to a lot of the technology we're, discussing in our, at least in my tech committee. So those are all complementary TCs, and you can just see the list that's across the spectrum. ThingWorks and sheet metal and silver logistics and tech authoring. There's many committees that you can get involved with. I would say it doesn't usually good to belong to all of them, but at least pick the ones that you're most passionate about and be involved in those. Definitely don't join them all and think you're going to be productive in joining all of them. I'll talk a little bit about smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0. And first thing you may say is, why do you have that both listed? And that's because generally in the United States, we talk a lot about the smart manufacturing, and that's kind of where the US kind of talks about it as a niche. And in Europe and beyond, they usually say it's Industry 4.0, or you may hear the term Industry X.0, and that's usually, they're just talking about the future of manufacturing. And in there, you can see kind of down below, the different steps of Industry 1 to 2 to 3 to 4.0 and beyond. And so it just kind of helps, see, most people are like, Industry 4, what does that mean? Well, you can kind of see the steps up of how the industry is growing and evolving and adapting to new technology and new processes. And so we just kind of strive for the innovation in manufacturing solutions and trying to bring it to the digital age. And so the goal is trying to get, smart manufacturing is all about trying to get away from paper and saying, how can I utilize the systems I have today to make it digital, make it smarter, make it quicker, and make it more agile. And it's more than just smart products. So a lot of times when people start talking about these industries, they start talking about a lot about IoT and those different acronyms. And a lot of times IoT is associated with putting intelligence inside your product. But that can also mean I'm putting intelligence into just my factory. I could be putting intelligence into the digital thread. So it really depends all on the context that you're talking about it. So you can see there, we talk about the digital thread. A lot of times it's the engineering through manufacturing portion of it. The digital thread can actually have many different threads. It could be into service, it could be into sales, it could be, into many different parts of industry. But in general, we typically talk about how the engineering data connects into manufacturing. We do also talk about the digital twin, and that's for service and maintenance portions of it as well. So how does that help evolve and serve the downstream usage of the engineering data? And of course, we also look at operational equipment efficiency, or otherwise known as OEE. That's also been proven to be a quick win for a lot of industries as far as how do I see that my machines are up and working and actually being efficient. And last but not least, digital equals agile. So as we digitize manufacturing, we can see that it's getting more agile. They're getting manufacturing involved earlier in the process. And so typically a lot in manufacturing, we've always seen this big difference between engineering and manufacturing, where there's this wall between them and they typically throw things over the wall. And so what we want to do is we want to not do that, and we want to have a more seamless integration across the different groups so that you're no longer just having engineering thrown at design and manufacturing, and the manufacturing going, oh, great, well, we'll see how we're going to handle this. And what we want to do is we want to make that seamless. We want to make it quick. We want to make the data, to reuse data from upstream to the downstream so that that way you can manufacture things quicker and with higher quality and less defects. And so we talk a lot about the digital thread, and this usually means how do I handle the data across departments. So a lot of traditional Windchill and Creo data typically is engineering focused only. So how do we get manufacturing planning involved? How do we get manufacturing execution? How do you handle product service? And the list goes on. And so you got this long thread of how the data can be utilized. And typically what happens is engineering is typically upstream, and then they're the ones authoring and creating all this data. What we want to do is, as it's starting to flow downstream, we're just taking that data, manipulating it to add the relative value that these other manufacturing people are doing, so that you can plan for manufacturing, you can start executing on the shop floor. Once I've executed on the shop floor, maybe it's now created a digital twin of what I just created, and then now I can utilize that for my service stream on the line, so that my service can actually understand what's going on with the product in the field, and I could better predict when a failure is going to happen and send a technician out to fix it, and or have the customer request service. So we do this by crossing multiple platforms, and by multiple platforms, products that PTC makes. So the big one here is we typically do a lot of discussions on Windchill and NPM Link. And so that's the manufacturing planning management. Operator Advisor, which is a suite of tools based on ThingWorx, is brought in and talked about a lot. Visualization, which also includes AR and VR, and of course model-based definition. All of these different products and kind of platforms are all talked about in here. And this is just a quick representation of, we talk a lot about how does the assembler utilize the data and what's our vision for moving forward. And it's using a combination of all of these tools to kind of get that accomplished. And so why do you even want to join a TC? So that's always a good question. And that's because your experience matters. When we're talking about the future of product tools, we want to say, hey, in your experience of using these tools, and it could be not even just PTC related tools, your experience across multiple platforms, whether it be CAD, PLM, ERP, MES tools, all of that experience matters. We want to bring that in, and we want to find out, your industry specific use cases. And whenever we talk about software and evolving it, your industry specific use cases can be really valuable to say how we're going to utilize this technology. And of course, networking. As you share your experiences and your industry use cases, you're going to be networking with other people, and this can help you out in your job today and in your job tomorrow, and it helps out the rest of us as well, just to kind of help build that network. Because when we start solving problems, I may not have a problem today, but like tomorrow I'll be like, oh, hey, I really had a great discussion with Scott on this 2 years ago. I'm going to go see what he's doing today and see if I can't, pick his brain a little bit. And then of course, influencing PTC products in the future is always key, because if you're not keeping your eye on the road of what's coming, it's really hard to adapt, because as you know, our companies don't just, turn on a dime, at least most of us anyways. And so if we can see what's coming and we can help influence that, that our enterprises we're working for today are set up for success in the future when that technology does come our way and is released for production. So I believe that is my last slide, and I am going, oh no, wait, I have one more. Working groups. So we have 3 different types of working groups that we're currently involved with. So there's PTC led. That's where a product manager actually has active budget and is working on a specific area and needs customer input. They will then sponsor a working group and make that focused on their active development tasks. A customer-led one is saying, hey, we have so much pain in this specific area that we're going to get together, talk about it, we're going to author a white paper, and then we're going to submit that to PTC to actually then answer about. And so that's kind of the one nice thing is PTC has come to us and said, if you have a customer-led working group and you author a white paper for my review, I will give you a response. And so we are guaranteed at least that, and then that there's no guarantee it's going to make it into the product, but if there's an author white paper and PTC is going to look at it, they will tell you if they find it valuable. And part of that white paper is also to tell PTC what its potential adoption is. And so the more involvement you can get by, hey, I got like 10 major customers that are all saying we want this functionality, it's much better than if you just come to PTC as an individual and say, PTC, we really see this as a problem for my company. But if you are getting together and say, hey, I want to sponsor a working group and get other companies on board with this, and you come together as a community of 10 or 20 different companies and say, we all find this valuable, it just gives the community much more ammunition to tell PTC what we actually think is important. And then last but not least, there are customer-led with PTC involvement, and then those are where customers like us are all saying, hey, we really find this valuable. And PTC says, you know what? I kind of find this valuable too. I'm going to at least have a product manager to get involved so that they can help steer the discussion. And then usually those two will also then have some sort of white paper come out of it as well. In the last year, I've been working on 4 working groups. So smart manufacturing, we've had an NPM link BOM transformation and update, which went on for, I would say, I think it was about 10 months. And so that one recently closed in the January meeting. And then we had one where we talked about the raw material object, which actually made it into the latest version of Windchill 12. So that working group helped steer that functionality and helped also prove the use cases for PTC. And so that group is also closed right now. And then we had one on work instructions and delivery, which is a combination of NPM Link and operator advisor, where we looked at how do we actually deliver the work instructions to the shop floor. And that one is just wrapping up right now. Our last meeting will actually be the end of June. And then we have an ongoing customer-led one, which I've been leading for NPM Link best practices. And this is just to talk about how we can come together as a community and lead the best practices for using a large tool like NPM Link. And with that, I will now hand it over to Scott so that he can talk about manufacturing.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. My name is Scott Miller. I'm the technical committee chairman for manufacturing. I think Eric said it's traditional manufacturing. I think that's what he called it. So I'm going to have only about 6 slides here. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. First, I just want to talk, this is for the agenda, what and why we do this. And Eric sort of got into that before, so I won't spend too much time on that. Then I want to focus on what specific products in manufacturing that we're focused on improving. Then I will talk about the people that are involved in it, and then sort of the process. What is the process that we're going to use to sort of help PTC with our products and help us all as a user community. Next slide, please. So there we go. All right, first, what and why? You know, the main thing I always say is, you know, we're all using the software, and a lot of times we'll say, you know what, why did they do blank? Or, you know what, man, they should have done blank. I don't understand why they did it this way. And I always say, like, who is they? Who is they? And I would say we are they. We are that voice. We are those people that have to be telling PTC, why did you stop? Why do you continue to have intent manager or whatever it might be? I think that we are that voice. And so we are the voice of the customer, part of the voice of the customer to PTC. And so if you ever have those different ideas that you think they should implement, then this is your avenue to get it directly into PTC. All right, next slide. So as we go on to the next slide there, where I think it's going to come here. There we go. The products. So a lot of people may not know this, but PTC has many manufacturing products. And actually, even NC Machining, the one probably I'm most familiar with, all the machining projects or products, they are used by many people, many companies. But it sort of doesn't get sort of recognition, I think, that it really deserves. But there are many other manufacturing products as well. So going through them, I think, you have prismatic and multi-surface machining, production machining, complete machining, mold machining, progressive die, tool design, expert mold base, computer aided verification, that's for CMMs. And then you have our NC sheet metal product. And then the new products that sort of come down the line recently are the ones for additive manufacturing. So there's 3 of them for additive manufacturing, and then you have harness manufacturing as well. So, we sort of want to give a specific focus into what products we're talking about. Because I think a lot of times when we form groups, working groups, or start to have discussions, I sort of want to put the framework into what specific product are we talking about improving? And because what specific features do you want to be added to this product? And if it doesn't, maybe there are some ideas that it doesn't fit into a specific product. Maybe it's something that it's a new idea. You want to create a library, or you want some other software functionality that is not currently in a product. We could have that that conversation as well. And whether PTC comes out with that product or a third party comes out with that product, it really doesn't matter. The main thing is we want to get new functionality to the users that's going to make them more productive. Okay, so next slide. So now, as far as the people that are really involved with this, it's myself. Like I said, I'm the PTC User Manufacturing Technical Committee Chairman. And then Jose Coronado, he is on the call too, I believe, right now. He is the Product Management Director for Creo Manufacturing. So he's really our inroads to PTC. He's going to help us. If it's going to become a PTC product, he is the guy that's going to help us with that. Right now, and I think Eric sort of went through this as well, there's really 2 places that I see that we collaborate from a technology standpoint, how we get together right now. That's the PTC User Technical Committee Forum. That's the PTC User site. That used to be very popular when we had the PTC Exploder. There isn't as much activity there, I would say, as much recently. But then there's also the PTC Community Group. There's a manufacturing community group, and we get some people from there. I mean, to me, these are the two platforms right now that will help us sort of recruit members into this technical committee. Because that's really, if we don't have a large number of people participating, then this doesn't really work as well. And so it was interesting because I was even looking at who was attending this presentation right now. And, I think we have someone from Kohler, we have someone from Lockheed, we have someone from Shore, I believe. But to me, the strength of the committee is really the people that are involved with it. And so, because that's the whole thing is we have to get your voice for this to work. So next slide, please. So this is sort of just a process sort of that I've come up with just to sort of put a plan behind this. Because I think without something, a sort of a step-by-step thing to go through, it just might lose its way. So I think that the first thing is recruiting people. I can't stress that more, how important that is. Because a lot of times, we will have calls, but if there's not a lot of people giving input, then it's just not, you're not getting that voice of the customer. So I think there's going to be a heavy focus on first recruiting a group and then somehow organizing that group, creating a project site or something like that. I mean, we do have the PTC user forum, and we do have the PTC community forum, but those aren't really meant to sort of get a lot of input and sort of develop a process that we can improve PTC's products or come up with other products. And so I think, you know, after we recruit the people, we are going to create a little project site, whether that's in Microsoft Teams or something like that, to really focus on a process to sort of, you know, push it forward. The next would be getting input. I've gotten, just when I go to the PTC communities, I see input. More generally, it's usually their gripe sessions that maybe something is wrong. You know, a lot of times you don't get many input. It's like, I like to see X. It's usually like, I can't get something to work, which is great input as well, because we can take input like that and sort of say, okay, what functionality would we need to improve that specific product? So the main thing is getting that input and then determining with all the input we get, what has the highest value. I mean, it's a lot of times the technical committees are made up of companies that are very big. I think, like I said, there might be someone from Lockheed Martin involved, Kohler. I mean, those are great. They have a lot of users, and that input is great. But there's still, I think PTC is as far as the number of companies that are involved as PTC customers, the majority of them are small to medium-sized businesses, and it's great to get their input too, because those are a lot of the companies that they're not going to have that CAD administrator or anybody like that. They are their own CAD administrator. So I think, you know, trying to get input from all of those people and then somehow rank those to say, okay, what is the highest value here? What should we really pursue and to try to implement into a product or even into a third-party product? The next thing is, I think Eric mentioned this, there's white papers. We write white papers. And this is just basically to describe exactly what we want. You know, what is sort of the business case? Why would we do this? I mean, if you only have, you know, a couple users asking for it, we're not going to do it. And then it's also, you know, how much effort would it be to change, put this type of functionality into the product? So we sort of write a white paper around that. And we do that as a group as well. Then we really want to get a PTC sponsor for something like this, because obviously it's their product. People like Jose know more about their product than anybody else. And so they're going to look at that product and say, you know what, actually what you're asking for is coming. You know, you just don't see it yet, but they might already have it on their roadmap, or they can talk through, well, all right, well, maybe we can partner with this company, or here's a couple different ways we can do it. But we really want to get that sponsor. And that's like I said, because that's sort of our inroad to PTC. Then write a project plan. I mean, once we have a sponsor, then it's like, okay, what are we going to do with this? It just comes down to, what is the plan? What is the execution method to actually get this new features and functionality into the product? And then, of course, at the end, we would like to see some type of product launch, because that's why we're doing this. We want to take advantage of that functionality to make us more productive. Next slide, please. All right, so the first step of the process, and I'm going to end on this slide because it is really the most important part of this whole process, is recruiting people. That is, we need to have that voice. And I think, like I said, Ben Cedar, Wade Taylor, Matthew Johnson, Michael Winfrey, James Moulter. I mean, you guys are on this call right now. I would love for you guys to email me, because I really want to understand better what manufacturing products are you using. And maybe you're more towards Eric's part, you know, with the Industry 4.0 and the smart manufacturing. But if you are specifically using the products that I had on that slide, I would like you to reach out to me and say, hey, I really want to work on, you know, complete machining or progressive die extension or something like that. Let me know, because I want to start to recruit people and think of what products they use and how we can start soliciting that input. And so that's all I really had for now. And I would love, if there's any questions or anything, we can talk more, but I'll pass it back to Eric. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Scott. Here's a list of helpful emails. So if you like what you heard and you want to reach out, you could definitely feel free to email one of us. Frank is the director of tech committees, and so he's the point of contact if one of our tech committees isn't a fit for you. Maybe you want to reach out to Frank and see if you can pick his brain as far as what tech committee you'd like to belong to, or maybe there's a gap that you want to fill that you don't see being filled by a current tech committee. Then of course, Scott and I are the points for smart manufacturing and for manufacturing. Mayan there is the director of working groups. So if you want to find out more about working groups and how you can get involved with those, Mayan is a good point of contact. Of course, if you want to actually get involved with a specific working group for a specific TC, the TC chair is your person to talk to. Then of course, just some more stuff. So that we got the PTC user president, Margie Korch, is also available, and you can email her. Anything on PTC user portal, there's Dan Glenn and Preti that can be contacted. And our PTC community manager, so that's for community.ptc.com, that is Jamie Lee Button, who you can contact. So those are just some points of contact in case you want to reach out to them and email them. That is it for us. So we thank you very much for joining and or watching this presentation. I'll go ahead and open it up if you have any questions that you actually want to ask. So if you want to have a discussion, Scott and I are here for your questions, and otherwise you are free to go, and I appreciate you joining.
Yeah, real quick, I would just be curious of the people that I talked to. What products are you mostly interested in? I'm curious. Maybe we could do that on the side too. Like I said, you could email me. But I really want a better understanding, sort of exactly who's using what. But if we have more time, I feel like we're sort of in that breakout session. We're all sitting in the room right now. So if we were all sitting in the room, I'd be asking you that. But like I said, we could follow up another time. But I really hope to see everybody get involved with this because it's very worthwhile.
This is Wade Taylor. Right now, Daktronics is using some other products other than what PTC provides. We're using Aegis Factory Logics. So right now, I'm just exploring what else is out there.
Okay, and so that was probably more towards Eric's type of products. Are you using any of like the CAM products or anything like that, or progressive back extension? You know, sort of the traditional CAM products.
CAM products as far as what, for metal type thing or for?
Yeah, machining, CNC machining.
We're using not a whole lot. Right now we're dabbling into some of the products Trump has, but nothing really major.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's currently what I see a lot in my technical committee, is that we typically have a lot of people that have homegrown manufacturing systems for execution, and they're all exploring to see what they can do to get rid of their homegrown and or semi-custom solutions and trying to go a little bit more out of the box and something that's industry standard. But sometimes in manufacturing, that industry standard can be difficult to find because manufacturing is so diverse that there really is no one manufacturing standard application to do it all.
This is Jose. I would like just to add a few comments, if you allow me. It's, for instance, what kind of topics we would like to discuss in a group like this for manufacturing. So, for instance, as product manager and as responsible for Q&C, I have a few questions. Like, are you interested as a machining community that we develop in the future? And I'm not saying that we will do it right now, but do you have any appetite that we develop a CAM system for on-chip? So this is a long-term strategic question that we are asking us right now. So it's something that, do you think that is relevant for you? It's something that if it exists, you will use it immediately. So this is the kind of discussion that is strategic and long-term that we can benefit of having a discussion. So this is in machining. In the additive side, for instance, we have been investing in metal, in functionality for metal printing. So the last thing that we did was to integrate a simulation to create compensated models, right? It's to minimize distortions, etc. So that was one area that we detected. Is there any other areas that are giving you problems, issues that we need to focus on? So this is the kind of discussion. So do we need to, because you should be aware that when we detect a problem that you may be facing in the day-to-day, maybe it will take 1 year for us to put it in the system. So I would like to focus the discussion in this kind of mid-term, long-term strategic aspects, but also we can discuss more pressing issues like, I don't know, you need some correction in one particular side of the system, then we can also discuss that. So this was just to add some color in the type of topics that we can discuss if you join the manufacturing TC. Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody on the call that uses the CAM products, the CNC machining products? Like Michael, Matthew, James, any of you guys, are you using CAM products? Not, maybe I was just on permanent mute, I'm not sure. So, but, and I think because Matthew, because I don't know if I have the right company, or I was just doing a little LinkedIn searches, whatever. So I don't know if Matthew's at Harley Davidson, and I don't know if James is at Kohler, so I'm just guessing since those are big PTC customers. But really, I mean, that's because I obviously, I definitely have some ideas for the CAM products, but a lot of them I see they're on the roadmap. You know, the support for the ISO standards for tooling is huge. And I think that's on the roadmap. I saw like automated programming for CMMs. That is huge. That's a great strategic roadmap as well. But without really knowing what products that you guys use, it's really hard to have that conversation. So more than welcome to talk. Or maybe everybody's in an airport right now. It's just too loud. Or they have a pack of dogs. Anyway.
Hi, this is Ben. I'm from Daktronics as well. I kind of hopped on because when I see stuff like smart manufacturing or connected manufacturing, I mostly think about machine or equipment status aggregation and trying to bring everything together to be able to report on what kind of machines are doing what their settings are set at, what their values are, what their sensors are picking up. I was just kind of curious, is that stuff that you guys touch on in this TC? Do you guys look at like the ThingWorx app stuff? Do you look at log aggregation? Do you do those sort of things?
Eric, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so as far as it goes, I mean, that's just one small component of smart manufacturing, is to get the data from your machines on the shop floor. You know, it really encompasses a much wider spectrum. So that's just one use case, but that is one that a lot of people are finding a lot of value in, is getting the data from even non-connected machines and both connected machines, because there are ways of getting your non-connected machines some data, sensor data from them, even if you have to install some local sensors, at least to find out, and then connect to some sort of edge computer, and then connect that to some sort of dashboard of which you can then make things visible. So yeah, that's one small area that we touch in. But yeah, smart manufacturing encompasses everything from designing, from how you take engineering data and transform that into manufacturing data, How do you plan your shop floor? How does the person on the shop floor have the information that they need to be effective? It encompasses I mean, it's a wide range. It's a lot of different areas. So there's many avenues we can take.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I actually, one of the things that we were looking at too, and that, I don't know, we were talking even about making this into a working group. Like one of the issues that we see is when you think of the entire system, like you talked about ThingWorks, and there's, you know, can manufacturing. If you talk about all the PTC products, I think it's very difficult right now to understand that entire system and how these products work together. So, I'd be curious if anybody would be interested in participating in a working group that focuses on that. I mean, whether it be a CAM product, a ThingWorks product, a Windchill product, a visualization product, all of these, how they all work together. So if anybody's interested in that, they could talk now as well. I guess no one's interested in that either.
Hi, Scott. This is Margie. Did you see the messages in the chat? There's a few replies about NC.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Yes, hold on. Okay, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, well, they do use Creo NC. Great. Thanks, Margie. I didn't see that earlier. Okay, well, that's good. And so I think when you register for this, that we had your I think we have your email address. So I think the few of you, like Matthew, I think you say you use it every day. So some of the other ones that put in the chat that you're using, I'll reach out to you specifically then as well to try to get you on this group, because there's obviously a lot of things we can talk about from the NC perspective.
Right, and everyone feel free, you can go to the website, ptcuser.org. You make a login. If you don't already have one, it's free, so it's very easy. And then once you get a login, you can go to our TC page. It lists all of these committees, the ones that Scott and Eric both lead are on the list, and you just hit the request to join button, and that gets you on the permanent email list. Well, it's not, I mean, you can get off, but those are the email lists that they'll use to set up future meetings. So once you're on that list, you'll be involved in anything that comes up in the future. You'll know about it.
Right.
Well, thank you, Eric and Scott. A great job introducing your committees. We very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And for those watching the recording, thank you for watching the recording. And please reach out to us and join our committees and join in the conversation.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good job, guys.
And bye now.
Bye.